Sawadee Krap. Hello everyone, welcome to City Decoding and Transformation. My name is Todd and I'm your host. Today I am very honored to have the chairman and founder of Banyan Tree, Laguna Phuket, and he's also the chairman of Singapore Management University. He's been living in Thailand for many decades and today we have the honor of interviewing him. Please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. KP. Sawadee Krap.
Sawadee Krap.
So first off, thank you so much for being on our show. It's a great honor to have you here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, before we go into the investment, could you please introduce yourself and your business, please?
Well, I happen to have started a company called Banyan Tree Holdings,
Yes.
which also owns Laguna Phuket. They're both listed companies, one in Singapore, one in Thailand. In terms of and then I also chair this university in Singapore. In terms of my own personal relationship with Thailand, I actually grew up here.
Oh, wow.
My Thai is not half as good as yours. I can sort of get by in the in the markets. But I studied in international school, Bangkok. I studied in Bangkok Patana School because my father and mother moved here in 1947. And they started a business which my son is running now called Taiwa Public Company.
Right.
And that's celebrating its 75th anniversary this year, at the same time that we're celebrating the 25th anniversary of Banyan Tree. So my links to Thailand are based on the fact that I've started my own business here in hospitality and also continuing my parents' business here, which has gone on for 75 years. So it's been
Wow.
a long relationship
Yes.
with Thailand.
Well, talking about Banyan Tree, you said that Laguna Phuket is part of Banyan Tree, right?
Yes.
Could you talk more about Laguna Phuket because we've heard this name so much and it's a very popular and renowned resort.
Well, Laguna Phuket actually started by accident. Almost 30 years ago, my wife and I decided that Singapore was kind of stressful, small city state,
Yeah.
and we wanted to look for a small piece of land to build a small summer house. Now, in the 1980s, Phuket was completely undeveloped. I mean, the airport was so tiny, you couldn't even imagine it. It would be unimaginable.
Well, like 30 years ago, right?
Yeah, 30 years
Wow.
ago, probably before most people like yourself were born even.
Yeah.
And then, so we basically, went to Phuket. It was hard to get to Phuket to begin
Yes.
with. But then we saw a little piece of land, we bought it. And then we walked along the beach and we saw this huge piece of completely devastated, denuded land. I mean, it was a beach. It was an entire beach
Yes.
with no trees, no sound of birds, no grass, nothing. And we didn't know at that time it was because this was a disused tin mine. And they had all these lagoons which were used for tin mining, which are now in fact the centerpiece of Laguna Phuket, the lagoons that we
Yes.
have that are joined up. But being young at that time and not being much experienced with business, so on a lark, we just decided to buy that piece of land. The happiest landowner in Phuket would have been the guy who sold it to us because he didn't tell us that it was completely polluted. So after buying it, I then got a report on Phuket, found out that Patong was supposed to be the place that the government wanted to develop. Now it's so developed, but at the time it was not developed. And the report said that Bang Tao, which is the area that Laguna Phuket is in, was to be left ignored by government and by everybody because it was the most polluted piece of land in Phuket.
Right.
So we bought it, and then we found this out. So then we had no choice. We basically spent 30 years restoring the land, and in the process, we won a lot of awards for environmental conservation and
Right.
rehabilitation. And that was the genesis also of our involvement with environmental protection. Now we're quite well known for our works on corporate social responsibility, environmental protection and so on. But we did this all at a time when it was not fashionable. Now Laguna Phuket is almost like in a mini city,
Yeah.
needing help from people like yourselves. Because not only are we now located in the most vibrant part of Phuket, which is Phuket West Central,
Yes.
where Talang is and so on. But our little 3,000 over rai of land is like a mini city. We have 7 hotels. We have almost 2,000 housing
Wow.
property, condos and houses. We have a population, both in terms of the resident tourists,
Yes.
the resident owners of properties, the
staff
workers, the staff
members,
members, also going into thousands. We have our own city transportation, we have our shuttle boats, we have our own water desalination and water treatment facility, our
Water
own
supply,
engineering
right?
workshop. We have everything.
Wow.
So we are really we are the largest integrated destination resort in Asia and a mini city. We've even thought about having our own flag and declaring independence.
That's true. Well, talking about Banyan Tree Holdings and all the projects that you have done, obviously it's such great projects. Why did you said you grew up in Thailand, but what is it that you found inspiration in Thailand to invest such big foundation here and big investment here in Thailand? What is it about Thailand that you fell in love with?
Well, I think probably the biggest positive part about Thailand is I think the inclusive culture, the inclusiveness towards everything of diversity, whether it be gender diversity, sexual orientation,
Yes, that's true.
whether it be religious openness. The society is a very tolerant Buddhist society, and although every society has got its own divisions, if you really look at Thailand, the divisions within Thai society, which do exist,
Yes.
are probably relatively minor compared to the vast cultural identity of the people. So the social cohesiveness, I think, I would say is probably one social cohesiveness and very strong sense of identity. The fact that Thailand was never colonized, the fact that you've had, hundreds of years of your own time to develop yourself, the fact that you've got a strong Sino-Thai community that sees itself as very Thai first and Chinese second, compared to, for example, the Chinese community in Indonesia and in Malaysia. You do not have a lot of ethnic tensions, although you do have some between the south and the and mainland, but it's relatively minor.
Yeah.
So that would be the main reasons. I think most people are in love with Thailand, the social cohesiveness of the people.
The cultural diversity, the hybridization,
Yep.
globalization.
Cultural diversity within a overall ambience of inclusiveness. So when you talk about diversity and inclusiveness, which is such a big buzzword in the world today, I think Thailand has exemplified this for centuries, and it's in a very real way.
Talking more about Banyan Tree Holding and Laguna Phuket, how has this helped society and helped Thailand? Obviously, you said you've transformed the mining of Phuket into right now a resort. How has this also helped the community in Phuket and also the community of Thailand?
Well, to the extent that we've always believed in working with communities and not just the environment. I mean, just give you one example.
Yes.
The slogan for our corporate social responsibility is empowering people and embracing the environment.
Yes.
It's not like a Greenpeace sort of attitude where only the endangered species and the physical environment is important.
Yep.
For us, because of my work as a development economist, I'm not a hotelier, I'm a development economist, it has been really the ability to marry environmental protection together with community development. That's so critical. If you're just looking at environmental development, it doesn't help alone. So for example, our contribution then is we took a huge piece of completely polluted land and we restored it completely so that now even the migrating birds from Siberia that come to the south, my Siberian ducks, actually land in our area before they go onwards in their migration. We have restored the whole flora and fauna of that area. That's on the physical side. We do a lot of work on sustainability and so on, but at the same time, the community is so important. And that area of Talang that we're in is both a Muslim and Buddhist area. So for example, every time we have ceremonies, we have Buddhist ceremonies and we have Muslim ceremonies. So in our own way, we're also trying to promote a sense of inclusiveness. And it, to us, very inspiring that in a world like today, where there's so many divisions, within our area of Talang, the Muslim and the Buddhist and the Christian communities actually interact very, very well.
Would you say that you were the pioneer that has changed the city landscape and also promoted foreign investment within the city of Phuket?
Well, I wouldn't want to say that at all. We don't ever want to make any claims on anything at all. We were there among the earliest people. It was the only hotel north of Patong. Yes, we are pioneers there, and people came after us. I would like to simply say I think we have grown together with Phuket's development, but I don't think one leads the way. One works with people.
Yes.
As I think even your own foundation and the good work that you're doing, you don't want to say you are leading the way. Then that is very presumptuous. It means that people follow you. I think we work with people and
Yes.
together we progress. And I think in that sense, we've been in Phuket for 30 years. The government, the local people, I think the best validation of our acceptance in the community is if you talk to people in Talang area, they all know about Laguna.
Yes.
For example, we have a fleet of air-conditioned passenger buses, you know, those big 44, those big passenger buses. We have a fleet of those that for the last 20 years have been taking our staff who work all over the island. We pick them up all over the island, we bring them to the hotel.
Yeah.
So we are also well known for associate staff welfare. We're known for working with the community. Basically, we see that we are community citizens. We're not just a business. We are hopefully a profitable business for our shareholders, but at the same time, we are a member of the community and we're embedded in the community and we do our work within the community.
There's something very important that I want to talk more about. We heard about the environment that you have changed over 30 years from the most polluted place to now one of the most beautiful places in Phuket. How has Laguna Phuket also helped with the community and the people of Phuket, especially the employees and the staff members?
Well, several levels. Obviously, the employees we hire from around the area. It is really quite heartening when you go to Phuket. When I go now and I see so many people walking around on the streets in Talang, in Bang Tao, in Cheng Talay, and so on, and they'll come up to me and say, "Oh, Kun KP, you may not remember me," and so on and so forth. But I used to work there, and my children grew up. You've given us our means of livelihood.
Wow.
I bought a house, I bought a car because I was working in Laguna for 15, 20 years, for example. We have long had a completely free community kindergarten for all the children of our associates and the community for 30 years. And it's won many awards for best preschool kindergarten in southern Thailand. We're now going to broaden it to be an international kindergarten to serve both the needs of Thais who want the kids to learn some English as well as the expat community there. We regularly organize with the Opato and with the Tesaban. We organize so many local activities every year. We have a piece of land that is we kept intentionally vacant that can take 5,000 people. We organize rock concerts. We organize food festivals where the local people sell their food and so on. So basically, we are really, really embedded in the community.
So talking about the community and how you have changed it so much, this comes to the foundation. What is your inspiration to create such great foundation for the community? Obviously, your environmental contribution has been tremendous. Laguna Phuket has now become a city itself with its own water supply, resort, shuttle bus, shuttle boats. Being the community person, obviously you gave them employment, you gave them from people who are unemployed or jobless, you gave them jobs and means of life. Talking about the foundation, what inspired you to create such great foundation for the people of Phuket and their children?
The foundation technically is not for the people of Phuket. There's a Laguna Phuket I guess community donation funds and so on. But we have a bigger thing called the Banyan Tree Global Foundation.
Yes.
Now, my wife is chairing that one. She's heading up all our sustainability efforts and so on. And essentially, what we did very early on was what I mentioned to you, that our belief is that if you want to do development and environmental protection, you also have to look at the environment and you looked at the community. So we wanted to also put our money where our mouth is. So we started something quite novel. We started charging every single guest who stays in our hotels around the world, 23 countries, 60 hotels. Every single guest who stays, we charge them $1 for one night stay. We then tell them we are donating our own money, Banyan Tree's money, $1 to match their $1. That money, their donation, and our topping up of that donation, dollar for dollar, goes into the Banyan Tree Global Foundation.
Wow.
And that is registered as a complete foundation. Legally, it's a foundation. We cannot touch it for anything and so on. And the projects they do are a wide range. They do deforestation projects, they do carbon offsetting. They also fund our own hotels, associates to do projects, which are both in the field of the environment as well as people development. Just to give you an example, one of the projects we're very proud of is called Seedlings, because we are a tree, right? Banyan tree is a tree, so a seedling is like a little seed. And every one of our hotels around the world take young people who are at risk, people from broken homes, people who have got a little criminal record, young people who are not doing well in school, and we then take them into our hotels to give them vocational training, as well as sponsor them through education. And we then try to mentor them to become very capable, competitive people in society and self-confident and so on. And it's quite amazing. Now every time we visit our areas, my wife always wants to meet the so-called ex-seedlings. Many of them, since we started 20 over years ago, many of them are now in their 30s and 40s and very successful people.
Yeah.
Just the other day, we had a so-called alumni gathering of the people from the kindergarten in Phuket.
Wow.
Many of them are now lawyers and doctors. So it's really very heartening to see people that you gave free education to when they were in the kindergarten, and we still see them now. So we really believe very much in people development as well as environmental development.
Right.
So that is the goal of Banyan Tree Global Foundation, and it's been really very successful around the world.
So we understand about the environment, we understand about the community now. Our environment, obviously, you've changed it a lot from the most polluted place to the most renowned place in the world and the most beautiful place. The community with poor upbringing or very rural areas, they have become nurses, doctors, great people of society. Now talking about responsibility, what is Banyan Tree holding responsibility in Thailand?
Well, I mean, our responsibility, when you talk about responsibility, I think the counter word for that, to understand to whom you have responsibility towards, the critical word is stakeholder. Now, we're a listed company, and we've always been arguing, and I argue this in the management university that I chair also, that when you just change one word, you actually change the entire way where you look at things. And by that I mean that if you are a corporate entity like a listed company and you're the CEO or the chairman and so on, the old mantra has been shareholder maximization, right?
Right.
You maximize profits for your shareholders. By just changing one word from shareholder to stakeholder, you change your entire outlook. We have maintained this for many, many years, and now in America, everybody's jumping on the bandwagon. They're talking about stakeholders rather than shareholders. Even very rapacious private equity funds that give their own CEOs, hundreds of millions of dollars while they break up companies, they're talking about stakeholders. And I'm quite, skeptical about that. But in our own sense, we believe in stakeholders. So within our companies, and we're not a social enterprise, we are a listed company that has to deliver profits. But we do believe that of all our stakeholders, shareholders are a very important part. We have to deliver them profits and so
Yes.
on and dividends. But other stakeholders are a wide range of people. All your employees are stakeholders, right? When they've lived with you, worked with you for 20, 30 years, they are stakeholders. The community that you work within, in our Bangtao area, in China, in Mexico, we're in Cuba, for example, we're in Africa. All the people that you work, that you have your hotels within, the wider area where the staff come from, and they're your stakeholders. Your guests are very much your stakeholders. You have a responsibility towards them. Your service providers, your suppliers. So once you sit down and decide who are your stakeholders and what specific ways you have responsibilities to them, then it's very clear what your job is as a company.
Well, now we understand about Banyan Tree's foundation, about your holdings, how you have many hotels in Thailand, all over Thailand, in Bangkok, and Phuket, Laguna Phuket now is like a city of itself with many staff members. And since your project mainly focuses on tourism, during the COVID-19 pandemic, how has your company and Banyan Tree Holding dealt with this?
What? It's been devastating. As you can well imagine, the impact of COVID-19 on the whole hospitality industry in Thailand has been wrenching. It's really sad. Now Phuket is coming back to life.
Yes, absolutely.
But when I went to Phuket in the height of the pandemic and we sort of sheltered ourselves there, my wife and I would drive down the coast, and you can see that Patong, Kamala, Kata, and all that are ghost towns.
Empty.
Completely
Empty.
It's like a move. It's really like, I
The
started
zombie movie, right?
Well, I started watching those. I started watching, what is it? What is it? The Walking Dead, vampire movies, right? And it's vampire movies you watch because if it's war movie, then you see all the places are destroyed. If you watch vampire movies, then the cities are all very well, but of course you see the vampires. But
it's like Chernobyl, right?
Yeah, it's like
where
Chernobyl.
Everyone absolutely migrated or empty, shelter themselves.
It's surreal. It's surreal because the buildings are untouched. And you even see, like Chernobyl, you see shopping carts left alone. You see cars deserted. It's devastating to businesses. So many businesses have gone bankrupt. The positive thing we did do, however, are several things. We had to let many of our staff go, otherwise we wouldn't survive. But after we let them go, we started an app called lagunajobs.com. And we registered all the staff we had to let go on it, so that now as business is picking up and we need temporary workers, casual people come in, because even now we're not fully back up to strength. Many people were just sending out messages on our mobile phone to our old staff saying there are job opportunities here this weekend and so on. Would you like to come and work? So we're providing an ecosystem of labor for our hotels.
Right.
We have organized so many community activities, community fairs, community walkathons, not just in Phuket, but in Bintan and in Vietnam. We have 3 integrated resorts in Asia. Besides Laguna Phuket, we have one in Vietnam, we have one in Indonesia.
Right.
So they are almost a community in themselves. We organize community events to make people not feel so desperate, and also for those people in the community who need another source of income. They bake little snacks, they make little things. They formed a little economy of their own at a time when the rest of the larger economy was devastated. So we've tried to keep the community alive.
Yes.
On sort of life support until such time as the overall economy can recover. Right. And hopefully it's beginning to recover now. And as it recovers now, our main job is to inspire and lead the way for a full recovery.
Right. Well, since Phuket is known as one of the most beautiful destinations that people around the world travel to, obviously Laguna Phuket has transformed the city of Phuket from one of the most polluted areas into heaven on earth with Laguna Phuket. Do you have any more transformation that you would like to do in Phuket now that the lockdown is over and the governor of Phuket has also stated that Phuket will remain an open city for tourism? Obviously, Laguna Phuket would like to expand, right? Do you have any more transformation you would like to do in Phuket?
We would definitely. I think Phuket has come out of this pandemic in a very positive way.
Yes.
Much of it due to the leadership of Kun Narong, the governor.
Yes, Kun Narong
Yeah,
Unsiu.
absolutely. I think he's very strong and very strong vision of what to do. With the Phuket Sandbox, which he's been arguing for so long, the Phuket Sandbox got international attention as a place, a haven for people to be, and as the gateway for tourism to re-enter into Thailand. Phuket got a very big name as a result of that. There's a whole transformation plan for Phuket. I think the government and all of us recognize that while tourism is strong in Phuket, tourism cannot be the only mainstay of the economy in Phuket. That would be far too dangerous. At the same time, Phuket is not a place, it's a small island.
Yeah.
It cannot take industrial development like the Eastern Economic Corridor, like Sathahep, Utapao and Rayong. That the government has plans to transform it into industry. But Phuket has to have a roadmap for its future next 20 to 30 years, of which a much more sensible tourism development plan has to evolve on one level. Tourism development up to 2019, the peak year for Phuket, had a lot of negative points too. A lot of mass tourism, a lot of unsafe tourism operators, ferries that sank and drowned many Chinese people that caused them to cause a boycott.
Right.
A lot of unsavory taxi operators. So there's a lot about Phuket tourism that has to be fixed. But Phuket can also be a place for, like they say, digital nomads.
Yeah.
So a smart city for Phuket really makes sense. The transformation of Phuket's infrastructure has to take place.
Right.
There's so much development coming in. The government is building more and more expressways and highways, but this has to be really discussed with the Phuket community.
Right.
So Phuket, I think, unlike some other cities in Thailand, where the pandemic showed more shortcomings than opportunities, this pandemic has shown that Phuket does have shortcomings, but it has also shown that it has probably more opportunities and more potential than it ever thought it could have, both in terms of being a smart city, encouraging smart industries, as well as, for example, medical wellness and wellness tourism.
Right.
So the plan for Phuket is really very bright, and it needs a lot of community participation.
So community participation can create a smart city in Phuket and also smart industry, and this is how Phuket can develop itself from a small city that focuses mainly on tourism into becoming a smart hub, a smart city, with Laguna Phuket being the model.
You're making an advertisement for CTPI. You guys should come into Phuket. I've volunteered. We could offer our area and the area around us, the Tasaban that is in that area. It's a thriving part of Phuket. The most thriving and vibrant part of Phuket is in our area. There's so many urban issues on education, issues on infrastructure, issue on community participation. And I think the local government there, the expat there, the expat community there, the Thai community there, everyone is just waiting for something to happen after the pandemic.
Absolutely.
So waiting for you guys to come.
Well, sure. I mean, we hear about Phuket and we hear about Banyan Tree Holdings and your commitment to environmental development, community development, responsibility there. This is really great. It seems that Laguna Phuket is doing such an amazing job in transforming Phuket into one of the most beautiful destinations in the world. I didn't believe that 30 years ago, before I was born, the area you have was one of the most polluted areas in the world.
Yeah, it's polluted. Now you have to mention what pollution means. It's not as if you think of pollution in terms of aerial pollution and so on. The pollution was, I was totally ignorant about the pollution. When I first went there, I saw these big lagoons. And the color of the water was like cobalt blue. I mean, like bluer than your backdrop here. Beautiful blue, so I was drawn to it. Only afterwards I knew that the blueness was the pollution. in order to get to leach out the tin from the rest of the sand and so on,
yes.
right? They do dredging, right? With dredgers. I know you're not. I think you know what they do, right?
No, not
Okay.
really.
Well, tin is in the ground.
Yes.
So the lagoons that we had, they had these huge machines that do dredging. They dig a little hole, then they put these dredgers in there, in the water, in the hole, and they make the hole bigger and bigger to the extent that now they're massive holes that became our lagoons. And from these holes, they basically suck out the tin and they put in a lot of acid and chemicals into the water that they leave behind. So they suck out, take away all the tin, there's no other nutrients. They then pile the sand back onto the ground. And that's what I meant. If you look at photographs of Laguna Phuket 30 years ago, it's a complete mess.
Yeah.
It's just not a single tree with mounds of disused sand and beautiful blue lagoons that were full of acid. And I didn't even know any of this until we put in a few cast iron pumps to pump the water out. And within 3 months, the pumps disappeared because the acid ate away the iron pumps. The acidic content was so bad. So the pollution that we had was very ironic. It killed the trees, it killed everything. We had to bring in topsoil, we had to leach out the acid. It was like a Chernobyl in the sense of the acid basically destroying the whole land.
And now 30 years later, Phuket has white sand, warm water, clear water because
Yeah,
of your contribution to the environment.
But I think what it does is, at a deeper level, it made my wife and I realize that tourism has a huge potential to be a double-edged sword.
Yes,
It
absolutely.
can either destroy everything, as many people have, or like in our case, it can restore the environment. And that gives us a
Absolutely.
great sense of purpose that
Absolutely.
you can do great things if you really want to.
And now focusing more on Banyan Tree Holdings, since you are the founder and Banyan Tree is responsible for many great projects, do you have any projects coming up specifically in Thailand or in any parts of Thailand?
We have other projects. Well, we have another area that we're doing that is probably could be quite interesting to you. Not so much about cities, but about development and agriculture
And transformation, right?
and transformation. My son is is a CEO of another company that is listed, much older than Banyan Tree or Laguna Resorts, and that's called Taiwa Public Company Limited. And Taiwa is celebrating its 75th anniversary this year. Taiwa was founded by my father, my son's grandfather, and so on in 1947. It was a pioneer in tapioca development and in creating starches, modified starches, and a whole lot of other agriculture-based things. But what they're doing now that is really unique, and the whole issue of transformation, is that they are now becoming leaders in bioplastics and in biofertilizers.
This is something Thai government is really focusing on, reducing the use of plastics. Now you see in convenience stores, in every place, everyone has a bag which is reusable, and we're trying to get rid of plastics and reduce them.
Well, you know what you're going to see that will lead the way is we're producing bioplastics. Now, if you look at the plastic bag that you see,
Yes.
and also a lot of the plastic sheets that are covering crops in agriculture in Thailand, right? To
Yes.
prevent the crops from being eaten by bugs and so on. That is basically hydrocarbon-based plastic. The plastic that will not be destroyed for thousands of years, right? It's not
Yeah.
biodegradable. We are now making from tapioca bioplastics so that your next shopping bag that you get will look exactly like your plastic shopping bag, and it doesn't have to be cloth anymore, it doesn't have to be anything. Basically, you're going to be getting plastic bags that will look exactly like the non-usable, non-biodegradable plastic bags. Farmers will have huge agricultural fields covered in bioplastic, which will just organically degrade and become, and basically go back into the soil after a certain time. So that is really transforming the entire plastics industry, and that's what my son is doing.
This is such great news for Thailand, and for the first time we could have biodegradable plastic.
Oh, absolutely.
Because in every shop you see, people are still addicted to using plastic,
Of course.
especially in Thailand.
Single-use plastic is, as you know, single-use plastic is the biggest source of waste in the world.
Exactly.
Well, you're going to have, that is all going to be replaced by bioplastics.
Wow.
So we will be leading that in Thailand too. We're very
Amazing.
excited about that.
So apart from environmental transformation in terms of landscape, you are actually transforming the use of plastics as well, which contributes to community, environment, and responsibility.
Yep.
So Banyan Tree Holdings is not just a company that focuses in Thailand. What about your plans globally? Do you have any other projects coming up around the world? Because we've seen your contribution to Thailand and how you develop Thailand as a whole, especially Phuket, talking about globally now.
Banyan Tree Holdings has got lots of projects. We're in 20 over countries, and everywhere we try to replicate the model of sustainable development that we have here. We are pioneering a project in Indonesia with something called Banyan Tree Escape, which will try to be carbon neutral. We will generate our own electricity, our own water. So that's another area that we're in. But there's one other area that we're doing in Phuket that will also be interesting, and we hope will be a pioneer in Thailand too, and that is in residential development. Now, most residential development take place in a very, very urban setting, even in Phuket. We have a very large piece of land in Phuket still that is not developed, and we're going to be developing it probably starting late this year. Quite a large, several hundred rai development, where we really want to have integration between nature and the built environment. We will have about 13 kilometers of walking paths, jogging paths, horse riding paths. The built environment will not be with just pretty gardens, but with in a setting of a forest. So all these, and we will have botanic gardens, in fact, of rare species of plants and so on, for the local population, not just the residents of the community, of the residential community, but even for the citizens of Phuket to be able to go there to enjoy the botanic gardens. So we're launching this project called Laguna Lakelands, because we've got a large lake, forest, and so on. So that we think will also be a pioneer development in Phuket.
Right. And from Banyan Tree Holdings' viewpoint, is there anything that Thailand can transform and improve on, apart from just your contribution to Phuket, but also SMEs, entrepreneurs, both private and public entities? What can they do to improve Thailand in terms of landscape, environment, even community?
I think a lot can be done, and I think Thailand is quite encouraging because unlike certain economies which are very much state-dominated or with government-led companies and so on, Thailand, of course, has got its very large Thai companies.
Yes.
It's also got multinational companies. But you have a very thriving SME sector. I would say probably one of the most thriving SME sectors in ASEAN.
Yes, absolutely.
A lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of initiatives to do things, not waiting for the government to help and so on, but just doing it on your own. Civil society is strong, SMEs are strong. So when you look at it from a development point of view, when you combine civil society with its view towards social enterprises, its sort of philosophical approach to development, and civil society works with SMEs with their entrepreneurial capabilities, you actually have a very happy marriage of small and medium-sized businesses which are purposeful. SME by themselves may not be purposeful, they're just there to make money. Civil society by itself is purposeful, but if it cannot execute, it's just NGOs, it cannot really transform society without business. So when you have business, that means the private sector through SMEs, and you have the civil society with its broader philosophical approach as to how development should move towards, you really have the basic ingredient for a very enlightened approach to development through business. So I think that's one of the biggest, most exciting things I've seen, that you talk to so many SMEs, they talk about CSR, they talk about sustainability, and they don't just talk it, they do it.
Yeah.
But they understand how to do it because civil society has also interacted with them to educate them about what all these things mean.
Sounds great. You know, it's a really great inspiration for Thailand and SMEs and new business, new entrepreneurs to grow. From Banyan Trees Holding, obviously Laguna Phuket is very successful and you have plans to transform the city more, expand it more. Do you have any vision on any other parts of Thailand that you would like to invest in, and what opportunity do you see there? I mean, there's Chiang Mai, there's Bangkok, there's Pattaya.
Yeah, there's Khao Yai also.
Yeah, there's Khao Yai, there's also Kanchanaburi,
Yeah.
Hua Hin. Being Laguna Phuket now, is there any more lagunas in Thailand you would like to do, or any other projects that you would like to do in any parts?
We have a very large piece of land in Chiang Mai. We have already set up an organic farm there. We have about 700 rai of land in Chiang Mai. So we've set up an organic farm that we're pioneering in a lot of ways there. We also want to do a kind of tourism in Chiang Mai that we think will be different. So that is one area. We have a potential project to help our partners develop a beautiful piece of land in Khao Yai. We have got projects. We have got banyan trees already in Krabi and in Samui. We have other projects coming up in other parts of Thailand. I think we want to do our part to showcase what Thailand has to offer the world. And it's not just beaches, it's mountains, it's culture, it's history.
Absolutely.
You know,
It's religion, tradition.
yeah, it's so many fascinating areas that, you know, Thailand is so exciting to people in the world. We are also trying to pioneer a new concept in tourism that we call purposeful travel. And I think it's very important post-COVID. It used to be pre-COVID that a lot of young people like yourself would say, oh, you know, got a weekend coming up, what am I going to do? Get on a plane, just go somewhere. It's so easy to do. It's almost like mindless travel. You just don't know what you're going to do, you go somewhere. Because it's so difficult to travel now, and people have been so emotionally burdened by being isolated. People are now looking to travel with a purpose, with a loved one, with friends. You really find that the travel brings you emotional gains in a post-COVID world. So now the real area for travel and tourism is purposeful travel and experiential travel.
Right.
So we think Thailand has got a lot of experiences to offer. There's a lot of reasons people can do purposeful travel. We're doing wellness tourism now. Thailand has been a center for mindfulness. So mindfulness travel is an area that Thailand can also provide a lot of opportunities for. So tourism in Thailand will always be big.
Yes.
But it need not always be just mass tourism. It used to be in the worst days of Pattaya and Bangkok, it was just basically sex tourism during the Vietnam War period. Now, thankfully, in 2019, Bangkok was the most populous city in the world. And while you could still have massage parlors and so on, it's not known for that anymore. It's known for culinary tourism, it's known for heritage, for many other things. Yeah, for everything. So Bangkok is no longer just Sin City. If you want to have Sin City, fine. Thai people are very tolerant. But Bangkok has morphed to become much more than that. And Thailand is doing the same thing. Thailand, if you want to go to a girly bar, fine, no big deal. Nobody's going to treat you badly and so on. But there's so many other riches of Thailand. So I think it's the other riches of Thailand beyond the beaches that people should come to Thailand to enjoy. And I think they will be able to do so in the next decade or so.
So we're absolutely honored to have Mr. KP, who is the founder of Banyan Tree, and founder of Laguna Phuket, one of the most successful resorts in the world and one of the most successful companies in the world. Mr. KP, thank you so much. ขอบคุณมากๆครับ
Thank you ครับขอบคุณมากครับ
So this is what we have in city coding and transformation. We've just seen the transformation that Mr. KP has contributed to the city of Phuket. It's absolutely amazing. And we'll see you in our next episode with other amazing guests like Mr. KP. We'll see you next time. สวัสดีครับ
Thank you ครับ
Thank you.
Thank you